So we talk about improving people outside of just their fitness, but a big part of that is taking people who've never been healthy or haven't been healthy since they played high school sports or whatever they did in college, and you forget of how good it feels to be a functional human athlete. And you think about making those sacrifices and maybe not having that piece of cake or whatever your vice is food-wise.
Yep.
Because you can't visualize the future without those things that you enjoy. And you think, well, I'm going to be the same exact person, but I'm not going to have these things that I enjoy. And what you're underselling there is how good it feels to be healthy.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
I am an everyday athlete.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jarrett Baston. You are listening to Everyday Athlete, a podcast devoted to bringing you the amazing stories behind the lives of day-to-day CrossFit athletes like yourself. I guess you're not really a day-to-day CrossFit athlete. You're kind of a superstar in my mind. Welcome, Pat.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on the podcast here. But let's address that first point. Superstar is maybe the loosest possible interpretation of that word. I've been in the game a little while. But
so you are owner and operator of CrossFit 513 United, correct?
Correct.
Downtown?
Yep.
Where are you guys located at?
We are on 327 West 4th Street. So it's the last block on 4th Street. We're about 2 blocks north of Paul Brown Stadium.
I feel like time flies, man. I remember you opening that, and it feels like yesterday. I remember living relatively close to downtown and just walking the dog by, and you guys were in there kind of pounding away, kind of getting everything set up, and now it's been how many years?
It was 3 years in January.
Man,
and yeah, I think you did one of our very first workouts down there. We had maybe 10 pieces of equipment, and there was almost nothing in there, and there was 5 or 6 of us doing some sled drags. And
yeah, man, that was fun. Do you guys still have that hand-built rig?
We do.
Do you?
Yep.
I will say that if we ever move out of here, this rig is staying where it's at. I'm not putting it. It was not meant to be in the space where it's at. It was meant to be in the other space. So when we tried to put it back together into what it is now, it was no bueno. I mean,
yeah, talking about right before we came on here about leveraging your members and all the things that they're capable of. It's actually my cousin, but he's a member at the gym.
Yeah.
Built it from scratch. When I say I designed it, that's the loosest possible term. But just put it on a piece of paper, and he brought his welder down and put it together. And I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20% of what it would have cost if we bought a commercial rig.
I know. It's crazy. The ease that something like Rogue will put on, you just buy it, bolt it together, it's great, but man, you pay for it.
And I lost 4 days of my life running a drill press, but one tool rental there and just the monotony for 4 days running that drill press. But it's worked out, and it's nice to have it's a daily reminder of, okay, we built this with our hands. And
I think that's the cool thing when you walk into a lot of these spaces and you can see like oh, that doesn't have a label on it, like that was made here.
Yep.
It's pretty cool to see. How'd you get started in the old CrossFit game? I mean, you've been in it for quite some time as well. I think we probably are in the neighborhood of starting about the same time, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't join my first affiliate until 2011.
Okay.
But started dabbling around with it when I was in Iraq in 2009. Was doing a really good job of being a tremendous upper body meathead.
Yes.
The bench press, the pull-ups, the whatever. No deadlifts, no squats.
Sure.
And after probably 10 months of doing that, and I put on a bunch of upper body weight, again, was just running because I had to maintain some level of fitness for the Army and started to get bored with it. So my lifting partner and a fellow officer of mine that I was deployed with, he and I eventually started once a week just doing some tire flips and some kettlebell swings and burpees until we would basically throw up and slap hands afterwards and say, great, we just did CrossFit.
This is amazing.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that started. And then when I got back, I found another officer that I worked with who had his L1, and we started working out together, and that was early 2010.
Yeah, so right about the same time then. That was late 2009 or something like that. So.
Yeah, and I don't know if you remember, I was home it was fall of 2011, I believe, right around Christmas, and I dropped into your class at New Cove.
Yeah.
And yeah, you fixed my clean then, and so that was what, 7 years ago now, almost.
Yeah.
6.5 years ago.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I gotta say, I mean, we were talking about the other day just how complementary something like CrossFit is to like just a military, especially when you're in a place that doesn't have access to a lot of equipment. Like, what kind of stuff were you dealing with when you were working out? I mean, I'm sure they didn't have cable flies and things like that, you know?
So I was pretty lucky that time around. My first deployment, we were on a major base there, so we had.
Okay, so you had some stuff.
We had a pretty big gym, and the dining facilities were great. But to your point, though, if we fast forward a couple of years to 2011, I guess, or 2012 when I went to Afghanistan, we were on a little outpost with 12 to 15 guys, and we had a canvas tent that was our gym, and we had all steel plates and a couple of kettlebells and dumbbells. So we ended up making a lifting platform out of sandbags so we could still drop the steel plates. And it was me and 12 guys every day that I would, and I'm air quoting, programming for, because at the time I'm just mangling people with tough stuff. But
at the same
in
time,
hindsight, yeah, it was a great developmental time for me as a new coach.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but think that again, whether you're programming for a games athlete or just some guys on the base, I mean, you're still programming CrossFit, which is, it may not be as smart as you may program now, but I guarantee you it worked.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. It gave us a good a break from it, and I keep up with several of those guys, and I think 6 or 7 of those 12 are still doing CrossFit now. Yeah. So 5 years later or 6 years later. It's
pretty awesome. So kind of fast forward. So what was it always just an idea that like, man, I really want to open a gym, or is it just kind of for Mark and I don't want to say it fell into our laps, but it seemed like a natural evolution. I don't know if that was something for you or if it was like, we hear some of those people where it's like, I had a job and man, I hated it, so I decided to do something else.
Yeah, it's not a dissimilar story to that. Finished my career in the Army in September of 2013, and I had started coaching CrossFit in 2012, so I was kind of moonlighting a little bit on the backside of my military career, and came out of the Army and got a job in the financial industry in New York. And my wife and I moved to Manhattan, did that for a year, and kind of felt like I was beating my head against the wall, and just knew that the longer I stayed in it, the harder it was going to be to get out. So I started planning my exit probably 4 months into that job. And so we started looking for spaces in New Jersey to put the gym, figuring, okay, if we can do this in there, it's going to be a much more financial success. And then the more I thought about it, the more it was, okay, I haven't lived back at home for 7 or 8 years at this point. And if there's an area in the country that needs health and fitness, it's the Midwest.
It is the Midwest.
And you've lived around here long enough to know that there's probably room in Cincinnati for 20 more CrossFit gyms, and we could all do just fine. So for me, I was not fulfilled at the job I had, and I knew that along with the passion for coaching and that I had been running small organizations in the Army for a while. So the idea of being a business owner to me wasn't that foreign, and the 1 year in quote unquote corporate America, if you will, was enough to motivate me to start this.
Yeah. That's it's I think where you're seeing you can get down the road of generational gaps and things like that. Of like you're a little bit older than I am, not by much, but a little bit older than I am. But there's a tendency for my generation to be looked as like this. You're on your heels, lazy, kind of, and it's like. No, it's just trying to find the right fit. It's like a lot of our parents and grandparents, they may have worked at a job for 40 years, but I can't imagine that they were unbelievably fulfilled with it. Yeah. So what was the well, I will say that I can agree with you on the adding 20 more gyms. We just did the numbers. It's like kind of finding where we want to go with the business, and we're doing the numbers for the city of Florence, and it's like we need 0.03% of the population for us to be successful, not just monetarily, but to affect the amount of people that we want. And I think there's something to be said about this. Maybe you can speak on this. It's something Mark and I talk about. Something with CrossFit gyms where it's like everyone acts like they have the answer. And they're holding their cards close to the vest. And it's like, there's enough people around. If
Yeah.
if one person migrates from here to there, it's not the end of the world. There's hundreds upon thousands of people that could absolutely benefit on what we do. So maybe just speak a little bit about kind of, I don't know, where you've seen the industry go in the last couple of years you've been in business, and maybe, I don't know, just where you would like to see it go.
Yeah, so I think the evolution of CrossFit has been pretty dramatic, and I think we're in an adolescent phase right now.
Still.
I think that CrossFit still hasn't kind of found, and when I say CrossFit, I don't mean HQ, but I mean the community at large.
Yeah.
We're learning how to train better. We're learning how to coach better. And as the sport and as the non-sport aspect of it matures, then I think that it's kind of that rising tides raise all boats.
Yeah.
And, the prevalence of coaching information, what you guys are doing with your coaching tips and stuff, I think that that's kind of the evolution of the CrossFit model, and that we can bring better knowledge and training to more people. So to kind of, I think, get back to your original question, if you can, where I think it's heading, is that? Yeah, I think the affiliate model is strong. I think that it's sustainable, and I feel like as long as we as owners, and you and I have been in this a little bit while, kind of stress the importance of quality coaching over how many people can you get into your gym. And we're obviously business owners, so we're not going to ignore profit and loss.
Right.
But I feel like if you do this right, that almost takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's almost copy and paste what we talk about on the daily here, and it's really just about, I think it comes down to, I think it starts with community. If you have your pyramid, have your foundation, whatever it is, I think a lot of that has to be built on the community and how you treat people. And then, that coaching is, if not identical in size and weight, but it really comes down to how are you treating people on a daily basis. And again, just speaking from a naive coach starting out where, I didn't think my shit stunk, it's to coming now where it's like realizing that the people who come through the door have it much harder, have a tougher, daily regimen than I think I do. I think that one of our 4 core values is humility. How do you express humility when it's really a sport that isn't about it? When you come down to the sport of things,
it's an individual sport.
Yeah, exactly. So I just showed the guys, because they were talking about kind of how big the CrossFit Open's gotten. I showed them the video of Charles Barkley doing CrossFit from a couple years ago, and you speak to him, and he's like, if you want to be a champion, you have to be cocky, and you see that a little bit in some of the top end people. I won't say maybe like Matt Frazier and Rich Froning. Those guys are definitely pretty humble guys, but you see a lot of those top level athletes, and they got to be a little bit cocky, in order to do it. But that isn't what is represented in our daily whiteboard classes, which is 100% community. Pick the guy up next to you, cheer them on. It's a little, I don't know.
So that's my hope, and I think maybe this is the point that you're saying too. Is that my hope is that we love the Open and we pump people up and we encourage participation, but the Open's not what we do.
Right.
It's a month-long thing, and I try to talk to our members and think about it like a season almost, because people tend to get amped up and they put all this pressure on themselves, and 2 weeks in they're burnt out because, and really stressing to them, hey, the Open is fun. It's a way to test yourself. It's a snapshot of where you were at on that day. Yep. And then we move on from it.
And it's not a representation of who you are.
Right.
That's something huge we have to get through to people.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you probably have 20 different anecdotes about this. But just this morning when I was sitting at breakfast, I had two of my members text me, "Hey, how do I approach this Open workout?" And these are, if I say their jobs and whatever it's going to be,
sure.
But 2 really successful people who are asking me, "Do I go ahead and do the double unders? Do I go ahead and do this?" And to think that these people are putting this much concern to exercise in their life, like, I love that.
That's exciting. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't want them to have the anxiety over it, but the fact that people who have children and jobs and lives outside of the gym, and I spend 4 to 5 hours a week with them, care enough about their fitness to even stress over it a little bit, I think is healthy.
Sure.
But that's one of my favorite parts of it.
I think it comes down to the redo, no redo question, you know, and I think we finally zeroed in on our answer. You know, we've struggled with the way to say it for so long, and we finally, and it's simpler said than done, but are you doing it for yourself? Do you think that you can do better on this workout for yourself? Yes, do it. Are you doing it because Tim, John, or Sally did better than you? Don't redo it.
Yeah.
Like this, it's just
it's not rocket science.
Yeah. You know, and to get that 30 people, some people get it, some people don't. And I'm not going to, you know, sweat over the details because it comes and goes every single year. But if you're doing it for yourself, go balls out, do whatever you need to do. But I do agree. I think it is pretty awesome to see, again, your quote, everyday people get that excited and that amped up about trying to push themselves into the next level. And I think there's a huge mindset shift. I definitely saw it with myself, and that was the ability to problem solve. And we've brought it up here on the podcast before, and really what it came down to for me is like, you'd see these big workouts, you know, chippers or something that's daunting, and then you go, there's no way I can do this. And then you get through it and you go, oh, it wasn't that bad. So the next time something large comes up, you know, not necessarily workout related, but something in your life, you can go, okay, what's the first step? Because that's what happens out here. You know, if it's a chipper, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to do these 100 double unders. Okay, first step, just start. You know,
yep.
And for me, it was a huge mindset shift and just problem solving in my daily life, and that's what we try and push these guys here. And I think that's a huge skill outside of our four walls that we can actually pass on to people. You know, that isn't necessarily fitness related.
No, I 100% agree that, and I may sound like a homer here who's someone who's a gym owner, but CrossFit has benefits far beyond the health benefits of it.
Yes.
One of the primary training tenets, and we call it training or working out, that I stress all the time with my members is building up a resiliency to being uncomfortable. And that applies through mobility. It applies through a Metcon. It applies through lifting. It applies through taking the time to step back if you have an injury. Mm-hmm. But being uncomfortable is a necessary life skill, I think, that applies to almost everything. So if we talk about, you know, I'll do some rough drawings on the whiteboard. It's one of my favorite things. My members get a kick out of it because I'm constantly drawing stick figures on the whiteboard. But I'll do these kind of loose diagrams, if you will. And if we say, okay, here's threshold in a workout. And your average beginning CrossFitter works up to that threshold and maybe goes a little bit too high, and then they have to recover and they drop back down. And then they work up a little bit and they get uncomfortable and they drop back down. So if you say a 10-minute AMRAP that you're in and you're doing this spike and these peaks and valleys in your output because you're going too hard or not managing your workload, you know, you're getting above threshold training for probably 40% of that workout. And the rest of the time you were just started, or you're in one of those valleys, or you're tailing off towards the end. So what I try to get people to do is to gradually ramp up. You hit that threshold and we just bang against it the entire time and then finish strong. So you've spent 3 or 4 times the amount of time in that actual beneficial threshold. But every time you go there, and the longer you stay there, the easier it is to go back.
Yep.
And if we can build up that resiliency to, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but I can still go.
Yeah. That
carries over into life, I think, in pretty much every aspect. Like, this is a little uncomfortable for me. I'm stretching myself out a little bit, but I got used to being uncomfortable in CrossFit, and I know I can push through some things I didn't really think
I'm not going to die.
Yeah,
I'm not going to die. It's, you know, that's, and we've literally heard that, you know, one of the things that we've done in the past is we're going to have a boot camp to really, because in a sense you can do CrossFit and outside of using some heavy barbells for the most part in a boot camp or high intensity, you know, interval training setting. And then we can say, hey, this is essentially what you're going to be doing to an extent in the regular class. And literally day one, people just shaking. And it's like, you're not going, they think they're actually going to die. And I'm like, we're not here. I don't want to kill anyone. Like, you know, but there's that mindset that people have been scared their whole lives. They've been scared because they've been told they can't do something, or they're not allowed to do something, or they're not supposed to do something. And we're here just to try and change that mindset that you can do whatever it is you want to do. It may sound cliche, but there is a serious truth behind that there is no wall. There's no one telling you that you can't do something here. If you want to go for it, I 100% want you to go for it, and I'm going to be behind you every step of the way.
Yeah.
and those are those life skills. Going back a little bit to kind of what you said about being uncomfortable. I haven't done it in a long time here, but I remember a class specifically where it was actually at the old gym, and set them out on a run, beginning the workout started. It was a 800-meter buy-in, 800-meter cash out. Well, they went and had to come back in, go right to some cleans. As soon as they left the door, stripped all the weight, threw all the weight all over the gym, just threw it everywhere. And
A little mental toughness.
and well, you saw two types of people come in. You saw problem solvers and you saw complainers. And as soon as those people came in, the people who just threw up their hands and said, "What the hell? I can't believe you did that." And they're complaining. Meanwhile, there's someone next to them who's halfway through, the set of cleans, because they saw a problem. They said, "Well," and generally what it was either someone who had been there for a little while, or they have a background that just taught them that, like, okay, there's a problem facing me. I need to, adjust it to make sure it fits my needs.
I like that.
So
My members won't like that.
yeah,
but
well,
I
exactly.
will like that.
But that's it. I guess my point being is I looked like a jerk coach for doing, like, I just did it out of spite because I wanted to strip their weight off the bar. But I was trying to teach them a lesson that, like, again, just go to the
Hiccups.
unknown and unknowable. Yep. Oh, sorry. Was the wrong way on your bar. Oh, your rope broke. All your shoes were untied. Like, you can't just count for those things. Sometimes stuff's going to happen.
I like that. That's
Yeah.
good.
So
Tool.
sorry everyone at Pat's gym. If your next class, you come back in from a run, all this weight's gone.
We've been threatening for 3 years now, which I guess maybe I should probably do it at this point, to have a mental toughness week where we don't allow any music.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing that drives me nuts as a coach, it's when athletes are worried about the music.
Worried about the music.
So much.
Yeah.
Hey, can you change the song? No, I'm coaching.
Yeah.
But I'll change the music a lot. But I
Well,
like the idea of
it's
just
tough.
throwing in some
We're in a
deviation
service.
to your normal.
We're in a service business. We're here to guide people along and make sure everyone's safe and happy. But again, we are in the business of building better people. And
I want to touch on that point,
we can go down that road.
I want to do it. Yeah, just briefly though. Into I don't know who would listen to this who isn't into CrossFit, but I truly and honestly believe that we are doing more than making people better athletes.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is not just us as coaches. The community has a huge impact on that as well. But I try to really convey that we're doing much more, and not just at CrossFit 513 United, but in quality gyms all over this country is doing much, much more for people than just making them fitter. We're making people more confident. We're making people happier. We're making people reprioritize their health. And I don't think the average person understands, if you'll follow the analogy for a minute, what it feels like to be on this side. Mm-hmm. And, we talk about, I'm a little tangential here, but we talk about...
It's a podcaster for.
Yeah, long form talk. So we talk about improving people outside of just their fitness, but a big part of that is taking people who've never been healthy or haven't been healthy since they played high school sports or whatever they did in college, and you forget of how good it feels to be a functional human athlete. And you think about making those sacrifices and maybe not having that piece of cake or whatever your vice is food-wise.
Yep.
Because you can't visualize the future without those things that you enjoy. And you think, well, I'm going to be the same exact person, but I'm not going to have these things that I enjoy. And what you're underselling there is how good it feels to be healthy. It's another analogy for that is like debt. And without, again, going too far into it, people in this country love debt. Mm-hmm. And they're not that you should be terrified of it, but we shouldn't all love it.
Yep.
And
we're told that we should love it. We're told that we should love eating like
go
crap.
spend money. Yep.
Yeah.
Go spend money, eat whatever you want. But that being healthy and being fit feels so much better than not, the same way whatever you were going to buy with that TV, that car, that whatever that provides that debt, nothing feels as good as not owing people money.
Yeah.
So
not have you in someone's pocket. It is again, we're going against the grain. I think that's why we get so much pushback, because that grain is, oh, you're the weird guy who brings his lunch every day.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, but I'm also the guy that can actually play basketball with my kids. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not taking a shot at anyone, but it's just like that's the norm. Is like, well, you see, the the dad who's screaming at their kid on the sideline, but I'm like, you're 45 pounds overweight, like I don't think you have a lot of room right now. And again, we can take that person, we can shape them, we can mold them, but they also have to be willing to make some sacrifices. We're not
uncomfortable.
We're not in a society that likes to make sacrifices. We're in a society that likes to just, I say this is the way it is, and that's the way it is, and that's not always true. Not if you're going to get what you really want out of life. To your point, just there's speak on a couple guys here where it's just like watching previous athletes who can move pretty well, and now they've lost 40 to 50 pounds, and it's like there is a unbelievable athlete under there. And if I can bring that person out and you see their confidence pop up, you see, it has nothing to do with the times they're making in the gym or the PRs they're making. You see them light up as a person. They have now become a different person. They're now more confident. You can't deny that that's going to make their life better, their job better, their career better, their family life better. You can't. I mean, and hopefully whoever's listening to this, it's one of those things like if you're a business owner and you're looking for a way to invigorate your company, it's get them to change the way they eat, change the way they exercise, change the way they think about exercising, change the way they just think about nutrition, because that's it. Once you do that, everything else starts to fall in place.
Yeah, I've seen a few. We've got a lot of people who work downtown, obviously being a location downtown, and not as rapidly as I would like to see, but slowly over time, just in our 3 years of being open, we've seen more members who come in with these vouchers from work that say, hey, get your gym manager or your trainer to verify that you've been attending class, and it gives them a break on their health insurance or whatever the incentivized program is in their company. And I think that's great, and I would just love to see that continue, because whether it's reimbursement for a membership, the more companies that realize, hey, if I spend $150 a month here on one of my employees and it saves me whatever in insurance premiums, and they become more productive at work and they miss less time because they're unhealthy, and they're more productive the hours that they are there, then that's a net gain. It's an investment in that person's health, and there's really not much of a downside to it in my mind.
There's a whole nother side of that with, you look at your Jason Kalipas, where they've got their hand in 20 to 30 gyms across the country, but they're getting into the corporate world where it's like, we're going to put a CrossFit gym inside your facility. You got a 4,000 square foot room in the basement. All right, we'll throw a gym in there, but again, as long as the foundation is there, and you're still instilling within that community, and you're giving proper coaching, you can make serious impacts on not just their lives, but the bottom line for your company. I think that's huge. Well, Bruno Mars playing in the background. Hurts another day. Bruno Mars is like the pizza. Like everybody loves pizza, just like everybody loves Bruno Mars, kind of thing. Can't deny it. So what's next for you guys? So let's talk about the Open a little bit, because we are in the midst of the Open. This probably won't air till maybe the last week or after the Open's over. But that's one of the things we both talked about, where if you're not a freak athlete and this is your job, we've both been in that like really competitive state, like I'm going to do this. Where are you at right now with your training personally?
So for me, and last year was a big year for me. I wish I could say positively for training, but it was a big year for me. I learned a lot.
I say that is a positive, though.
Yeah, it was. And that's why I say big. So it was the first year for that Masters 35 to 39, and I didn't go into it really with any expectations, but I hired a coach, and really spent the most time training for a selfish physical goal that I think I really ever have. And Open came around, I felt like I was in great shape, and it just didn't go the way I had planned for it to go. And when you train yourself up and you're really in tune with your body, you can look at a workout and say, okay, this is what I'm capable of in it. And when you don't get there, you don't get there. But on the backside of the Open last year, I think I was in the 500s out of 35,000 people, which is obviously not bad. But when you're talking, have to be in the top 200 in the world to move on. It's still a good ways away. So for me, my motivation for training had kind of waned a little bit. I felt a little bit burned out, and for the last or for the several months after the Open, it was kind of half-hearted training and focusing on some other things. But just in the last, I would say probably 3 or 4 months after kind of having that break from it, I've really, and it's going to sound cliche, but I've really fallen back in love with CrossFit.
Thank you.
And
it happens.
Yeah,
right?
It does. It's this long relationship that you have, and it ebbs and flows. And it's crazy to me to think that I've just really enjoyed being in pain again in a workout. And I think that I didn't realize how far I had gotten away from enjoying it and being results driven versus the process.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying and looking forward to my training every day now and saying, okay, how hard can we go here? And
having some fun.
Yes.
There's I think everyone that probably everyone, regardless of level of fitness, goes through the same process. And I can tell them blue in the face that this is the process you're probably going to go through, but until they experience it, this is what I'm finding out throughout life. It doesn't matter what it is. We've had some younger guys here that have gone through girl problems, and it's like I'm telling them, I'm like, this is exactly what's going to happen. And you're an idiot. And then they come back 6 months later and be like, that's exactly what happened. It's the same thing where I can tell someone out here every single day to get your knees out when you squat, knees out when you squat, hips between the ankles, over and over. And then Mark walks up to me and says, you should really get your knees out when you squat. And they go, oh my God, that's the best piece of advice I've ever had.
I've been saying that to you for 6 months.
So it's one of those things. I can tell them blue in the face, but until you experience it yourself, you really won't understand. I think it doesn't matter what it is in life. I think that's just how it goes. So I've kind of accepted it. But I think everyone goes down that path. It doesn't matter whether you're a regional level athlete, whether you're below that, whether you're just starting out, and you could be in the hundredth of thousands of place, but you probably will try and ramp up your intensity, ramp up your volume, ramp up your strength, and then either fall off hard or plateau. And then you have this crossroads where you either, I'm done doing CrossFit, or I'm just going to finally have some fun again.
Yeah, so that's resilience, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened, probably me as well. Again, not that I'm like going to the games or anything, but it's like you have this expectation. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to train my butt off. I'm going to prove to myself, to everyone, that I am at this level. And then if it doesn't happen, again, it's either like, okay, well, next year is just going to be that much harder, or I can finally just kind of accept, like, I just need to enjoy this. It's like, because we tell people all the time, like, we need to play the long game. Like, if I'm playing this short game of the CrossFit Open, the regionals, or the games, and that's what matters, I want to beat myself down doing it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I don't want that to be like, if anyone's listening,
sure,
they're at that level. There's nothing wrong with that. I commend everyone that does it because they're amazing athletes. But when we're talking about the general population, again, if I want to be 65 and still able to move well, I need to be able to think and play the long game.
Yeah, what's the purpose of what we're doing in here? Is we're making people healthier, we're making people move better, we're adding some strength and some functional movement to their life. And one of the first things I tell new people is that you can come in, you can be as competitive as you want, you can be as slow paced as you want, but our sole job here is to make you better at life outside the four walls of the gym. And if we push you to the point where you get hurt, I've done the exact opposite of what my goal is.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
At the risk of maybe progressing a little bit slower and building that foundation, then I'm going to err on that side.
Yeah. We took a huge shift just personally, not personally, but as a gym, just a massive step back as far as programming goes. I think the general consensus for a lot of places was, and just how it evolved for us for a long time, was you got your strength, you follow a strength cycle, and then you have your Metcon at the end. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but what we found was, like, how can I properly teach you how to progress through a pull-up if our squat cycle takes 35 minutes out of the day and now we got to hurry up and do a workout? Again, it's just what we found worked best for us and worked best for our progressions. And it was just like one of those things, like, oh, now we really have to coach, because what we were finding is we're just managing people throughout the hour. If I've got, all right, 5x3 overhead squats, build to a heavy set of 3. All right, hurry up, guys. We got to get everything ready. And now we've got Helen to do.
Yeah, your coach is the time manager at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then what it really came down to is, like, we're just going to have to be on coaching a lot more, because if you've only got a 10-minute workout, how do you fill 50 minutes of class? Well, it's with proper warm-up, proper explanation of said modifications, or really hammering down a lot of those pull-ups. But what we found almost a little over a year later, was like, wow, the number of people that have now progressed past using that red band on pull-ups every time has insert X, Y, or Z on the movement, but they've excelled, you know. And now you can push the intensity higher because you're not waxed from doing, you know, a bunch of push presses.
Yeah, I think in probably every CrossFit gym across the country, you're going to have the 10% of your members that can benefit from, here's jam-packed hour. Mm-hmm. We can handle these 2 parts and a little bit of an activation, and you can go.
Yep.
But for those 10% who are going to get better from that programming, the other 90% are just catching their breath the entire time, and we're not going through the progressions, and we're not taking the time to teach the nuance of the movement. And when somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to learn how to do a ring muscle up, and I say, okay, so let's talk about your strict pull-up. Let's talk about,
they're like, what?
Can you successfully kip swing? Can you engage your midline and hold a hollow in an arch position? And if we can't do these things, we're not even going to say the word muscle up, because it's it's process versus results, right? So we have all of these progressions you're going to work on, and just taking a step back in the class on a daily basis to think, can we get into an arch position? Can we get into a hollow position? And I think it gets lost a lot of times for people who, like you and I, who live at our gyms and have been doing this for a long time. Like, yes, I can hold an arch position, I can hold a hollow position, but for people who are working 40 to 60 hours a week and have kids and practices to get their kids to and whatever, they need that refresher.
Yeah.
Every time they come in, this is arch and hollow. I don't sit around and think about CrossFit all day and gymnastics.
It comes down to realizing, again, it's not about you or I or your coaches. It's about them. You know, we've got our people where it's like, you've been here for 2 years, and every time we do snatches, I got to remind you what snatch grip is. You have to get to a point where you have to understand that is okay, because they are here as a supporter of what you do for your livelihood, and you have to understand that their mind may be elsewhere. You know, we tell our guys all the time, you need to treat everyone as if their grandma just died, or if your grandma, you know, it's like, you don't know what's happening in their day.
That's rough.
But you gotta, you know, I'm not saying.
No, I know the point though. I know the point.
But you know, it's like, it's one of those things where you gotta understand that, like, their mind may not be anywhere near this gym, and that what we're providing them is a sanctuary for their day. You know, that they have to be able to come here and feel comfortable. If you're berating them because you're 3 minutes late after class.
Yeah. So what are we talking about here? It's people who need coaching, and if you're not down with explaining the nuance of those movements or whatever,
what are you doing?
You're not coaching.
Yeah.
Like, that's your job, is for them to come to you and look at you with a blank look on their face and say, I don't know what to do here.
Yeah. That's
why they're paying you what they're paying you.
Yeah.
You know, and if that happens every day for 3 years while that person's a member at your gym, so be it.
Yeah, I agree. It's that's a growing moment for.
Now I'm going to give you a little shit.
Yeah.
You know, if every time we do it, we talk about.
And that's just relationship building. I mean, yes. we've all got friends. We've all got friends where it's just like.
It's important for me to throw that caveat in, because if any of my members listen, they'd be like, "You're not quite that." But yeah, we'll joke around and whatever. But you know, I've got members that we can explain something to one time and they pick it up, and I've got people that need to be reinforced over and over again, and you know.
That's a big one for day one people whenever they come through the door. And I'm like, for some of you guys, it's going to be, especially if you've got multiple, we do a lot of one-on-ones, but especially if there's multiple people in the class, like, you may get this right now. You may never get this, and there's nothing wrong with either of you.
Yeah. So how do you someone walks in who's never done CrossFit before, and how do you manage expectations for them? Say, okay, this is, I can explain to you what CrossFit is. I'm going to take you through your beginning workout, and then after that fact, here's expectation management for your first few months. Prior
to all that, we actually bring them up here and sit them down either over the bar. No, we don't have a bar. You can't see it, but it's full stock bar. One day, I guess, maybe. But we'll sit them down and really ask why they're here. And that's a really weird question for a lot of people to answer.
If you're used to the regular gym model, it's a really weird question.
Yeah, so we ask them why they're here, what their expectations for us are, and then we kind of explain what's going to happen to them for the day. And then really it comes down to just building a relationship, because if you, especially right now, if you walk in on a Friday through February and March and it's your day one and you see people going ham on a workout and you're like, what the hell is going on here? Yeah, I'm never coming back here. Explain to them that their level is their level, that it has nothing to do with what else is going on in here. And really just making them feel comfortable in the moment, because there are so many people that, again, come through the door and Mark has a really good term for them. They're either the Yosemite Sams, right? Finger guns, guns blazing. I'm ready to go. And those are the people you have to pull back, or the people who are deathly afraid to be here. And it's oddly enough usually one of those two. I mean, there's some middle ground, but for the most part, it's usually one or the other. And so it's really just kind of figure out what type of person they are, really what it is that they're here for, and then from there we can kind of move on from the workout. Some people we have to modify. Our day one workout is super basic. It's a push, pull, squat, rail workout. No equipment. I think we have a 10-pound plate to use as counterweight for squats.
Yeah, we use baseline.
Yeah. So we did baseline the other day. Oh, it was an awful workout. But really, it's from there. It's how hard are we going to push this person on day one? If they're the finger guns blazing kind of thing, like, all right, I might get you moving a little bit more. But there's some people where it's like we knock a 12-minute workout down to a 6-minute workout, and our push-ups are on a box. We're squatting to a box each time, and I think it really just comes down to individual attention and making that person feel comfortable, because you have to make them understand that we are here for them, that this community is here for them, that everyone has felt silly. I actually remember how dumb it felt to do a burpee, how dumb it felt to clap overhead. I'm like, why do I have to clap overhead? And this is back in the day, I was doing an Urban Active. I remember doing Helen at an Urban Active, running 400 meters on a treadmill.
Yeah, the looks.
A dumbbell, kettlebell swing, and doing pull-ups on a TRX machine. And just like, I remember doing a burpee workout. And I'm like, I'm not clapping overhead. That's stupid. But I'm like, if you feel dumb, everyone's felt that way. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's in this boat together. We call it embracing the suck. Everyone embraces the suck together, whether you're a doctor, a professor, a plumber, an electrician, a teacher, a lawyer, it doesn't matter. You're all in this together. And once they finally understand that, like, all these people are like, they're all here working out. That's we're just getting better together. Then that community starts to build, and that's the magic. It really comes down to that over and over and over and over again, is seeing these people chit chat down here for an hour after class.
Yeah, you and I were talking right before we started this about some of the things that you guys are doing here, extracurricular activities. We actually have, and it's been great for us, is we have a social events committee at the gym, comprised completely of members, and we try to get one outside of the gym event per month that we.
You guys got a pretty sweet luxury being downtown.
We do.
Yeah.
We did the scavenger hunt a couple of months ago. That was like an 8-mile scavenger hunt across the city, where we met at the gym.
I don't do anything for 8 miles, Pat.
Yeah, well,
I drive.
I organized it. But we have the committee. I think it was about 3 weeks ago. We went and did breakout room because it was a great team building thing, and we tried to emphasize, leadership in that. And it's just been really nice. I mean, it's on the door of our gym. It says "Community through Fitness," and it's simple, but it's absolutely the tagline we've tried to exist by.
Yep.
And I think more than anything we've done with any of our athletes, I'm more proud of our community and how tight it is.
And again, I think that's when you talk about the future of what everything's going through. I think that's it. I mean, you got it's 500,000 people doing the Open this year? I think that's about the
close
number.
to.
Yeah, about 500,000 people. And again, they're going to take 120 people to the games. Is that what it comes down to? Something like that.
With teams, I think.
Yeah. So whatever it is. So you have 120 out of the 500,000.
People like to throw around 1%, and they don't realize that 1% is not close.
Yeah. It's like a fraction of that percent, So, but again, the point with that is you have to build that community. That has to be the basis of because if you're trying to just form mutant athletes, you're not gonna, because there's not enough of them out there.
Yeah, the hierarchical gym model is not one that we ever sought to have, and absolutely pushed back against. And I think that you can do that, you have your Invictus and your Misfit Athletic, all these gyms that are known for these really phenomenal athletes, but just like there are a few of those gyms, there are only a few of those athletes, and for the rest of us normal human beings, like, community is it. That's your bread and butter. And if we do things like stop making just our best athletes coaches, because there are certainly advantages to being a coordinated athletic person when it comes to coaching, but I know one thing for me, one thing that I really had to overcome, if we're being honest here, is that I'm a fairly decent athlete, and I can watch somebody do a movement, a lift. The first time I ever did full snatch, it was my first time ever doing it, and I hit 160-pound snatch. Yeah, which is crazy now to think about it, but I've always been able to pick things up quickly. Right. Why that hurts me and used to hurt me as a coach is I didn't have to do a lot of progressions. I did a muscle up the first time I ever tried to do it, and trying to explain to someone, here's the 3 months of work you need to put in, or 6 months of work to get a muscle up, and I didn't have that knowledge. It was more of well, just do this. Yep. And just being a good athlete does not make you a good coach. You have to develop into that. And that was 100%. I was same boat. It was I remember CrossFit Northern Kentucky. First, what are those rings up there for? And then doing, and again, it's not a pat. Somebody didn't tell you that it was supposed to be hard. It's not a pat on the back for me, but there's no, you can't relate to someone. It just is. Yeah, you can't relate to someone who's going to struggle with that, and it takes a long time to develop the skill to understand that this either maybe something they'll never be able to do because of some sort of maybe shoulder impingement or strength issue. Or B, to be able to take a step back and say, this is exactly what you're going to have to do it. What are you willing to give up? And that's the other side of your not higher end athletes, but people who want to take the next step. Yeah. I believe that you can get there. Here's what it's going to take. Are you willing to give up that much? So the opposite end of that spectrum is my wife. Sarah is a phenomenal athlete now. And she's worked her ass off to get there. She's the person who came into the gym and couldn't snatch an empty barbell, couldn't even remotely begin to think about doing a pull-up. She couldn't squat, and was that person that comes into the gym and you're like, well, I don't know what this person's ceiling is going to be. But one thing that she always has had is an unbelievable work ethic, and she has willed herself into becoming a really good athlete, and it's really translated in her ability to connect with people and coach them, because she says, this is where I started. And most people look at her now in our gym and she's one of our better athletes, and people think, well, just assume that she's always been that way. And if you have known her as long as I have, which none of them have, and you realize where she started, is she was that person who came in and it's like, here, put the PVC pipe in your hand, we're not giving you any weight and whatever. But to see how far she's come is impressive. Just following her on social media. She also backs it up with you have the other two missing parts for a lot of people that takes a long time for most people to get, which is nutrition and your recovery or your mobility. Fill in whatever kind of adjective you want. But like, if you work out for an hour, you should probably be doing a minimum of a half hour of mobility per day to compensate for the damage you just did, and also for the nutrition side of things. What are you putting in your body to help fuel you get through this day? And and a lot of people don't put those two things together until much later down the road, either before they plateau, because we all know people don't. There's that there's that 12-week period of where you're just PRing everything and everything's amazing, and like I've bought every accessory known to man when it comes to CrossFit, and then all of a sudden you hit this ceiling and I'm like, okay, well, there's still two missing pieces. Do you want to fill that in? And for a lot of people, not a lot. Nutrition's always the last one. Yeah, it's always the last one. I'm like, again, I tell people day one, it's like, or not, no, it's actually our day two that we talk about nutrition, but it's one of those things where it's like, all right, walk me through a day of food. Don't hold anything back. I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to give you some guidance. And it's like, the sooner you can change that, the easier everything else here becomes. Yeah. And we preach it all the time. We do clean eating challenges throughout the year. We actually, talking again about leveraging your members, we have a member who is a really talented programmer, and he built an app for us from scratch. Wow. Got it up on the App Store, and it's an internal gym app now that we use to track our clean eating challenges, so you can communicate with team members on it. It tracks points, you log food, whatever, and he just built it from scratch. And it's been a really awesome tool to keep people accountable. But just to kind of put a bow on it, is specifically in the very beginning, nobody wants to think about nutrition. And
I mean, you're told it doesn't matter for whatever reason. People just don't think it has no effect on. Well, if I just work out more, I'll be fine. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm like, and
it's easy for us to see that and see the absurdity of that.
But I went through the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'll just work out more, and it's like, okay, well, I can't move, so something else needs to happen.
So just to touch on that briefly is, since I've started CrossFit and since I've started it seriously in late 2010, 2011, every decision I've made about how to train and how I'm going to lift and what my focus is going to be has been on how am I a better CrossFit athlete. Mm-hmm. And I did a pretty drastic nutrition change on January 1, and it was the first decision I've made in the interest of health and inflammation and feeling better and moving better that wasn't, how's this going to make me better at CrossFit? And
under the big umbrella of longevity.
Yes. Because I'll be 39 in a couple of months, and I feel great. I think that age, if I can sound a little bit heavier right here, I think that age is much more a function of where you're at in life and not how long you've been on the planet. And growing up in this area, it's not the healthiest area in the world, and I see my peers, and I just want to explain to them that's not what 40 has to look like.
Yeah.
It's not what 40 has to feel like.
Yeah.
But just getting back to that is I made that decision, and ultimately I feel amazing in my workouts now. So when I switched, and when I did, I'm zero carb and kind of went to keto because I've had some issues with arthritis in my shoulders from the military, and that has cleared up. My sleep has gotten better. My mood has gotten better. I'm not groggy in the afternoon because of the kind of the blood sugar spike and whatever.
Sure.
But ultimately, cleaning up my nutrition has made me a better athlete, and that was not the intended consequence. But It's not shocking that that's what happened.
Yeah, and it's again, I think it just takes taking a big step back and just looking at the bigger picture of your life. That's really where it comes from. And that was a big part of it. The CrossFit is now a side effect. Your fitness is now a side effect of you being a healthier person. And again, we're getting a little deep as far as
fair enough, yeah.
but there's trualities. There's truthfulness to it, and it's one of those things that we're also not 100% always right. We are always learning, always making decisions. Some will be right, some will be wrong. And if I can just guide people from my mistakes, from things that I've done in the past, and if I can find the right people who actually want to listen, then we're going to have a successful day.
Yes.
I do want to kind of wrap things up here. We always ask people just a really basic question. It's always super interesting to see what they have to say, and that is just, what is your definition of fitness?
Wow.
Deep, right?
Yeah, it really, I mean, for us, yeah.
Yeah.
Fitness for me is, I think, if we're going to talk about CrossFit, but life in general, is just being able to do as many things at a functional level as possible. So whether that's, if you take an athlete who has a 500-pound deadlift but can't overhead squat an empty barbell, and that person's probably not terribly fit. But if I can have that person with a 185-pound deadlift, that's, in real life is not a huge number, but is a functional number, when that person can overhead squat 115 pounds and they can do a strict pull-up, and you can go say, hey, today the programming is run a 5K. So it sounds a little cliche, but the generalist is what I consider fitness. And it's a pretty clear model to say, hey, here, what do I suck at? Let's work on that. And once I get a little bit more proficient at that, let's find something else I suck at. So fitness, to get back to your original question, is just being able to approach life, not just the CrossFit workout, and saying, okay, I'm capable of doing this. If my kid, I don't have kids, but if your little cousin, your nephew, the neighbor's kid, whatever, and you go out and play basketball with them, or your other neighbor asks you to help move, and just being physically prepared to be able to be functional, whether it's picking up a couch and moving it, or running around in the backyard with a family member or whatever. That to me is fitness. Is we don't have an area of, I'm going to miss out on this life experience because I can't physically do it. And it doesn't mean you go run a 10-mile Spartan race, but just hey, let's go play basketball with the kids. Like, that's fitness, being prepared for that.
I agree, 100%. Real life. That is really what it comes down to. Well, thank you. Thanks for being on today.
Appreciate you having me, man. It's been a good time.
Thank you for listening to Everyday Athlete, and join us next week as we dive deep into the lives of those who make us great. Thanks.